There's a $5 jug on the shelf of every supermarket in the country that will bring a large share of dead lead-acid batteries back to life. Not additive, not a miracle powder, not something sold in a small bottle with a big claim on the label. Distilled water. And here's the honest part stated up front, because the title makes a promise, and I am going to deal with it in the first 2 minutes rather than the last. The water is what saves the battery, but you will still need a charger. What the water does is remove the thing that is killing the battery. What the charger does is put the energy back. Nobody can do the second part with a jug, and anybody telling you otherwise is selling you something. So if you came here for a liquid, you pour in that, fills a battery with electricity. That does not exist, and it never has. If you came here because you have a battery that reads dead, that a shop has told you to replace, and you would rather spend $5 than $200, then stay with me, because there is a genuine repair here, and most people have never been told it. Last spring I had a tractor battery that would not turn anything over. 12.1 volts on the meter, which is not dead exactly, but it would not hold a charge for 2 days, and it would not crank. The parts counter quoted me $190 for a replacement and told me batteries just do that. Before I paid it, I took the caps off and shone a torch down into the cells. The plates were dry at the top, not covered. I could see the tops of them standing above the acid, gray and dry, in 3 of the 6 cells. That battery was not worn out. It was thirsty, and it had been slowly dying of that for probably 2 years while I never once looked inside it. That right there is the whole video, and I'll come back to it. Here's precisely what is going on inside a lead-acid battery, because you cannot fix one without it. Inside each cell, there are lead plates sitting in a mixture of sulfuric acid and water, and that mixture is called the electrolyte. When the battery discharges, the acid reacts with the lead and forms lead sulfate on the surface of the plates. That is normal, and it happens every time you use it. When you charge it, that reaction runs backwards, the lead sulfate breaks up, and the acid goes back into the solution. That is the whole cycle, and a healthy battery does it thousands of times. Now here is how they actually die, and there are 2 main ways. The first is sulfation. If a battery sits discharged for a long time or is chronically undercharged, that lead sulfate stops being a soft film and turns into hard crystals. Hard crystals do not break up easily on a normal charge. They sit on the plates, they insulate them, and they take capacity out of the battery permanently as they grow. That is what most people mean when they say a battery is dead. It is not empty, it is coated. The second is water loss, and this is the one nobody checks. Every time you charge a battery, a little of the water in the electrolyte is split into hydrogen and oxygen and vented off. That is normal too. Charge it hard or run it hot or leave it on a cheap charger and it loses water faster. The acid does not evaporate, only the water goes. So the level drops and the mixture that remains gets more concentrated and more aggressive. And once the level falls below the tops of the plates, 2 things happen at once. The exposed part of the plate stops working entirely, so you have lost that share of your capacity. And the exposed part sulfates hard and fast because there is nothing protecting it. A battery with 3 dry cells is not a worn-out battery. It is a battery that has been quietly strangled, and in a great many cases, you can undo it. Here's precisely what the water does not do, so nobody is disappointed. It does not put charge in. It does not dissolve hard sulfation. It does not repair a plate that has physically shed its material into the bottom of the case. And it will do absolutely nothing for a sealed battery, which I will come to. What it does is restore the electrolyte level so the whole plate is working again and can accept a charge. Cost. A gallon of distilled water is $1 to $3 at a supermarket. A cheap hydrometer or a refractometer to read your cells is $10 to $25. Safety glasses are $5. Nitrile gloves are a few dollars. A funnel or a turkey baster to fill with is $2. So call the whole thing $5 to $30 depending on what you already own. I spent a long career maintaining buildings full of equipment that ran on batteries nobody ever looked at. Emergency lighting, alarm panels, a couple of floor scrubbers, and a standby set that everybody assumed was fine because the light on the panel was green. The rule in that building was simple. Batteries got replaced when they failed, and nobody ever opened one. The first year I started topping them up on a schedule, our battery spend dropped by more than half. Not because I was clever, because nobody had ever put water in them. Nobody thanked me for that either. That's the trouble with maintenance. When you do it right, nothing happens. So I'm going to walk you through this in order. Which batteries you can open and which you must not, how to tell what is actually wrong, the water job, the charge that follows, what real desulfation is, the additive myth, and then the safety, which on this topic is not a footnote. And then I'm going to give you the part that ought to annoy you, which is that this is not secret and never was. Every fleet mechanic knows it. It used to be printed in car handbooks. There's just no money in it. A battery that gets topped up and lasts 8 years instead of 4 is a battery somebody did not sell. There is no service contract on a jug of water, no part number, and no call-out. Sealed batteries made it worse, and I want to be fair here, because sealed batteries were not invented to stop you doing this. They were invented because most people never checked the water anyway, and a sealed battery that needs no maintenance genuinely fails less often than a flooded one that gets ignored for 6 years. But the side effect is that a whole generation has grown up believing a battery is a box you throw away, and never once opened one. If an old maintenance man's tricks are worth your time, hit subscribe and the thumbs up. It's the only way I know that you want more of them. Now, the first thing to establish, and this is a hard line, there are batteries you can open and batteries you must never open. A flooded lead-acid battery has removable caps on the top, either individual round caps or 2 long strips that lift off. That is the kind you can service. And it is what most car batteries, tractor batteries, golf cart batteries, forklift batteries, and older solar banks are. A sealed battery, which includes AGM and gel types, has no caps and is usually marked sealed or maintenance-free somewhere on the case. Those are built with a valve-regulated design. They recombine their own gases internally, and there is no water to add. Drilling one, prying one, or forcing one open ruins it and exposes you to acid, and it will not work afterwards. So step 1 is to look at the top of your battery. Caps, you can proceed. No caps, this video is not for your battery and no liquid will help it. Now the diagnosis, because you should know what you're dealing with before you pour anything. Take a resting voltage reading with a multimeter, with the battery disconnected and left to sit for a few hours. A 12-volt battery at full charge reads somewhere around 12.6 or 12.7. Around 12.4 is about 75%. 12.0 is roughly half, and anything down near 10.5 is deeply discharged. Then take the caps off in good light and actually look inside each cell. You're looking for the level of the liquid relative to the tops of the plates. In a healthy battery, the plates are fully covered. If you can see the tops of the plates standing dry above the liquid, you have found your problem, and you have found it in about 30 seconds. While you are in there, look at the color. Clean electrolyte is clear. Brown or muddy liquid means material has been shedding off the plates, and that is genuine physical damage rather than neglect. And if you have a hydrometer, take a reading from each cell. What you're looking for is not the absolute number so much as the difference between cells. If 5 cells read the same and one reads far lower, that cell has a fault and no amount of water will fix it, because a battery is only as good as its worst cell. There's one more test worth knowing, and it separates a tired battery from a finished one better than voltage ever will. Voltage tells you what a battery has stored. It tells you almost nothing about whether the battery can actually deliver it. A sulfated battery can sit there reading a perfectly respectable 12.5 volts, and then collapse to 8 the moment you ask it for real current, because the crystals on those plates are getting in the way of the reaction. That is why a battery can pass a voltmeter check and still refuse to crank an engine, and why people conclude their starter is faulty when the battery is the problem. A load test applies a genuine draw and watches what the voltage does under it. Most auto parts shops will do one free while you wait, and a basic load tester is $30 to $60 if you own several batteries. So the order is, look inside, read the voltage, then load test. The first 2 take 5 minutes, and the third tells you whether the repair is worth attempting at all. Now the job itself. Put on safety glasses and gloves before you take a single cap off. I will explain why in the safety section, and I am not going to soften it. Clean the top of the battery before you open it so that dirt does not fall into the cells. Take the caps off and fill each cell with distilled water only until the liquid just covers the tops of the plates, plus a small margin. There is usually a marked fill line or a split ring inside the filler neck, and that ring is the level. Do not overfill. When the battery charges, the electrolyte expands and gases, and an overfilled cell will spill acid out over the top of your battery, which corrodes the terminals and everything under them. Distilled only. Not tap water, not bottled mineral water, not rainwater from a butt. Tap water carries dissolved minerals, and those minerals settle onto the plates and poison them permanently. This is the single most common way people make things worse while trying to help, and the correct water costs $1. Do not add acid, ever. Acid does not leave the battery, only water does, so adding acid concentrates it further and accelerates the damage. Acid only goes in if a battery has physically spilled, and that is a job for somebody equipped for it. Now the charge, and this is the part the title glosses over, so let me be straight. Once the plates are covered, you charge it. Slowly. A slow, low current charge over many hours is far better for a tired battery than a fast one. A smart charger with a maintenance or reconditioning mode is ideal, and those run $25 to $80 and will pay for themselves on one saved battery. Expect the first charge to take a long time and expect the battery to look poor partway through. Then let it rest and take a resting voltage again. That 24 hours in the title is roughly right for that cycle. Fill it, charge it overnight, rest it, test it the next day. And here is the honest expectation. A battery that failed purely from low electrolyte often comes back close to where it was. A battery that has been sitting deeply discharged for a year comes back partially, if at all. And a battery with a shorted cell or shed material does not come back, and you should not spend a week trying. Now, real desulfation, since I have used the word. Hard sulfate crystals can sometimes be broken down, and there are two legitimate methods. The first is an equalization charge, which is a controlled overcharge at a slightly higher voltage for a limited time, used on flooded batteries to break up sulfation and to mix the electrolyte. It is a standard procedure in the solar and forklift world, and it is built into good charge controllers. But it must be done properly, on a flooded battery with the caps in place in a ventilated space, and it consumes water, which is why you check the level afterwards. Do not equalize a sealed battery. The second is a pulse desulfator, which applies high-frequency pulses intended to break down the crystals. Opinions on these vary genuinely among people who know what they are talking about. Results are mixed, and I'm not going to tell you they are magic. They are cheap, they are not harmful when used correctly, and some people report success. What neither of those things is a liquid you pour in. Which brings me to the additive myth, and I would rather you heard this from me. You will find a great deal of content telling you to dissolve Epsom salt in water and pour it into your battery cells. Do not do it. What that does is change the chemistry of the electrolyte, and it will often give you a better voltage reading for a short period, which is exactly why the videos look convincing. What is actually happening is that you have introduced a foreign compound into a system that was designed around sulfuric acid and lead, and it does lasting harm. You have also just contaminated the battery so that it cannot be properly reconditioned afterwards, and made it a worse candidate for recycling. If a $5 bag of salt could genuinely restore lead-acid batteries, every forklift fleet and every telecom site on Earth would be buying it by the pallet, because those operations run thousands of batteries and count every dollar. They are not. The water works because it replaces something that genuinely left. The salt does not work because nothing about the battery was ever short of magnesium. Now, the safety section, and on this topic, it comes before the results. The liquid in that battery is sulfuric acid. It burns skin, it destroys clothing, and it will cause permanent damage to an eye faster than you can react. So safety glasses go on before the caps come off, every time, no exceptions. Gloves as well. And if you do get any on you, flush with a great deal of water immediately and get medical attention for anything on the face or in the eyes. Keep baking soda nearby, because it neutralizes acid, and use it to clean any spill on the battery top or the floor. Never let baking soda get inside a cell, since it will neutralize the acid you need. The second hazard is the one that hurts people, and it is hydrogen. A charging lead acid battery vents hydrogen gas. Hydrogen is explosive across an extremely wide range of concentrations, and the classic accident is a spark at the terminal igniting the gas inside the battery, which bursts the case and throws acid over whoever is standing there. So charge in a ventilated space, never in a sealed cupboard. Never smoke or bring a flame near a battery. Connect and disconnect the charger with the charger switched off so you are not making a spark at the terminal. Do not lean directly over a battery while it is charging. Third, never let a metal tool touch both terminals at once. A car battery can deliver hundreds of amps into a short circuit, and a spanner across the posts will glow red hot in a second and can weld itself in place. And fourth, respect the weight. Lead acid batteries are heavy, and the way people hurt their backs is by lifting one out of an engine bay at an awkward angle. Now the honest limits, all of them. This works on flooded batteries only. Sealed and AGM are out. It works on batteries that failed from water loss or mild sulfation. It does not work on physical failure, shorted cells, or shed plate material. A battery that has been fully dead and sitting for a year is a poor candidate, and you may get a fraction of its capacity back rather than all of it. A revived battery is often not as good as it was, and it may not last as long as a new one. That is fine when the alternative was $200, and it is not fine if that battery is the only thing standing between you and being stranded somewhere cold. And this is maintenance rather than repair. The real value here is not resurrecting dead batteries, it is checking the ones you own before they get to that state. So let me give you the schedule, because it is short and it is worth more than everything else in this video. Check the level twice a year on anything in regular use, and before and after any long storage period. Spring and autumn is easy to remember, and it takes about 10 minutes for several batteries. Check it more often on anything that works hard or runs hot, meaning a battery in an engine bay in a hot climate, or one on a solar bank being cycled daily, or anything that has been fast charged. Keep the top of the battery clean, because a film of dirt and moisture across the terminals will genuinely drain a battery slowly over weeks. And it is why an old battery in a dirty engine bay always seems to go flat faster than it should. Keep the terminals clean and tight. A corroded connection makes a battery look weak when it is perfectly healthy. And people replace good batteries over green crust on a post more often than anybody would like to admit. And most importantly, do not leave a lead-acid battery sitting discharged. That is what causes the hard sulfation I described earlier, and it is the single fastest way to ruin one. A battery left flat over a winter can be finished by spring, while the same battery kept topped up will still be working in 5 years. If something sits unused for months, put it on a maintenance charger, or take it off and charge it fully every couple of months. That habit alone will roughly double the working life of every battery in your shed. So who is this actually for? If you have a tractor, a boat, a motorhome, a golf cart, a mower, a solar bank, or any vehicle that sits for long stretches, this is genuinely worth your afternoon, because those are exactly the batteries that die of neglect rather than use. If you have a modern car with a sealed battery, there's nothing to open, and this is not your job. And if a battery is your safety-critical starting battery in a harsh climate, revive it by all means, but test it properly, and do not trust a rescued battery in a situation where failure is dangerous. So, this week, here's what I want you to do. First, go and look at every battery you own. Just look at the top, caps or no caps. That single check tells you which of them you can maintain and which you cannot, and most people have never done it. Second, on any battery with caps, take them off in good light and look at the electrolyte level. If you can see the tops of the plates, you have just found a battery that is dying for $1's worth of water. Third, buy a gallon of distilled water and keep it in the shed, not tap water. Write distilled on it if you have to. Fourth, buy safety glasses and put them with the water, because the two belong together and the glasses are the cheaper of the pair. And fifth, take a resting voltage reading on anything you're worried about, write it on a piece of tape on the battery with the date, and check it again in a month. That tells you whether it is holding charge, which is the real question. Tell me in the comments what your batteries looked like when you opened them, and how many of you found plates showing above the liquid. I read every one of these, and I suspect that number is going to be higher than anybody expects, because almost nobody checks. I'll leave you with what the old boy who trained me said the first time he caught me about to throw a battery in the skip. He said nothing in this trade dies as often as people think. Most of it is starved, or it is dirty, or it is dry, and the man who opens it up and looks first will spend half what the man who replaces it spends. Open it up. Look first. It is $1 of water in 5 minutes, and it is sitting in your shed right now.